Good morning and welcome to Hope, Faith, and Joy Daily Devotion with me, Pastor Amanda. As I mentioned last Friday, I'm on vacation spiritual retreat for the next 2 weeks. But I still wanted to make sure that we had daily devotions. And so you're seeing pre-recorded videos of me, but I hope that you can still find the hope, faith, and joy in being able to do scripture, even though I'm kind of off and away right now. And we're continuing to look at Mark, and today we are in chapter 6. And it is quite a long chapter. And yet at the same time, there's a couple of things that popped out to me as I read through this particular chapter. So at the first, we find that Jesus is experiencing rejection in his hometown. It's that same old thing where people have placed you in a box, and the family systems of a community have a hard time seeing a person grown up sometimes, or seeing a person transformed or in a new way. And so we see that Jesus has that same struggle. And it even says in verse 6, he was amazed at their unbelief. So often people are amazed at Jesus. Now Jesus is amazed that they just can't believe in him and what he's doing. And so he has to continue on. Now, the next few verses are actually some of my favorite in understanding and learning what it means to be a disciple. And it says, starting in verse 7, he called the 12 and began to send them out 2 by 2 and gave them authority over the unclean spirits. He ordered them to take nothing for their journey except a staff, no bread, no bag, no money in their belts, but to wear sandals and to not put on 2 tunics. And then he gives them some more instructions. But what I get from this is this wonderful understanding that we can't do ministry on our own. Not a single person can do it by themselves. You've got to have a mentorship, a co-chair, something where somebody else is helping you. It's not just you by yourself. You really have to feel that you're not alone on this journey. But what I also like about this is that Jesus says that they don't need to take a lot with them. They need to take very little with them. And it's this understanding that once you take the leap to do something, what you're doing is trusting that God will provide for all your needs, your skills, your talents along the way. And, with all the Enneagram work I've been doing, I know that there are some people that this is really hard for, because you want a plan. You want a backup plan. You need to collect as much knowledge as you can at first. So for some folks, this idea of just doing it is almost incomprehensible. And yet that's what Jesus and God are calling us to a little bit, is to step out of our comfort zone and say, maybe there's not a plan. But we have to trust that God will give us the plan, give us the skills, give us the gifts we need as we take the journey. But we have to do that first step first. And like I said, I know it's really hard. I'm an information collector myself. I love to get information, have a plan, and once I have my plan, I'm flexible. But sometimes we gotta just do things without a plan. And so I recognize that, and that's the challenge I get from this particular scripture today. Maybe that's why I like it so much. We then go on to find that Herod has killed John the Baptist, and we recognize that Herod falls under peer pressure. He didn't really want to kill John the Baptist because he himself feared him as a prophet, but due to peer pressure, he did it. And I think he has some regret in it too. But anyways, as we continue on, we find again, Jesus feeding the 5,000. And what's interesting again is, one, the disciples don't have to do it all by themselves. They don't have to have all of the things they need. They just have to trust. Now, when Jesus says feed the people, it'll work out. They didn't have to send them away. And they did it together. They did it as a team. And it worked out just fine. But they didn't necessarily have the resources in the beginning to do the ministry. They started doing the ministry and then the resources came. And that's really hard, I think, sometimes. Because sometimes we like to know that all of our ducks are in a row before we start. And sometimes you got to start and then get your ducks in a row. And I need to hear this. Maybe you don't, but I definitely need to hear this. Sometimes you just got to do, and then you get to think about it and feel it later. And then what we find is that Jesus he again walks on water and calms a storm, and the folks in the boat are still at this place of not completely understanding who Jesus is, but they're again in awe of his ability. And he continues to heal people along his journey. And so lots of stuff going on here, but really what I took out of today's reading is the importance of doing ministry together. And when you see a need, when you see something that needs to be done, sometimes you have to start doing and then figuring it out. As they say sometimes you have to build the plane while you're flying it. And sometimes I think our biggest hurdle is not even getting started, because we can't figure out a plan, or we just can't figure out all the backup plans along the way. And so I find this encouraging that God will provide. God will provide if we just keep on doing. And so that gives me some hope, faith, and joy for today. And I hope it did you also. So thanks for spending this time with me, and I'll see you tomorrow morning.